We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening. Good evening. Yes, that is the mindset coach, Dwayne Dwyer. But as you see, it's on me this week. Poor man's Dr. Phil, Mr. Shift Happens. And we are appreciative that you're here because we have a dynamic topic tonight. One that, normally I like to act a fool. I like to cut a fool. I like to joke and everything. But this one is serious in nature. Now, we may get a couple laughs here and there, but this one is serious in nature because it deals with the family. It deals with the male portion of the family, and not just the family. It deals with the silent divorce warning signs and those signs that you're ignoring. So as we talk about this topic and bring out everything, you got to admit that everyone on here knows somebody or has been involved where they've experienced divorce or just know somebody who had a divorce. And it was a time where, it was no holds barred, all jokes aside. Sometimes they fight over children. Sometimes they fight over money and properties and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, you know, so, when you look at it, like nobody really checks on the man and what started it. So when you go and afterwards, it's one of those things where you go back and think, man, what did I do? Or what did that person do? Or how could I rectify this situation? I ask those things now, but during this topic of conversation, we're going to try to break everything down because we have two dynamic speakers on here tonight that have the utmost experience in relationships as well as we've all been previously divorced. So we have a little experience and know-how. Now remember, no one divorce is the same as another divorce. Everyone takes it differently. Everyone's experiences are theirs and their own. So when they're speaking from their experiences, what they say is true to them. It may not be like that in yours, but to them, it was a hard time and it was this and it was that. But those experiences are theirs, and we are subject matter experts of our own opinions. So let's open this thing up. Brothers, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
I can get that on, man. Nah.
I'm good. No issues. Another great week. Another awesome Friday. Another opportunity to share in conversation with my brothers and the live chat and social media. So yeah, all is well here.
I did not get paid, but it's Friday night, and I'm excited to be here with my brothers, man.
Okay, Johnny Kim.
But even when it's a rough week, the highlight is being able to get on here with you brothers and chop it up. And as Coach put it, with the livest chat on YouTube and social media. So, I'm excited for this conversation, man.
I'm gonna tell you straight up, I wasn't excited about this conversation because no, I wasn't, because I'm looking at this conversation and it causes you to expose self. And some things, sometimes when you expose self, I like to be the happy person, the that person that's always smiling. But some of this may bring out some things that I've identified even within me that where I was lacking. So it's not necessarily a ha ha he conversation, but it's one of those conversations that needs to be had. And like you said, Gaddy, the livest chat, because we always have the utmost conversations even in the chat, where they're making sure that they keep it rolling over there. Sometimes I'm like caught up over there because they're asking questions and they're being insightful and they're making sure that as we're speaking, the conversation doesn't distract what's going on over here, but it continues what's going on over here. And so we'll pull talking points from over there. We'll make sure that what's being said over there can be so everybody can see it, because we have people on various platforms, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of these different platforms that people are listening. So we appreciate you. And I'll be remiss if I don't call out some people, but calling out some people, I'm going to leave out some other people because I have a platform that may not show up here. Gaddy has one that may not show up here. So all I ever do is I go to the YouTube and I pull them down and I say, thank you for being here, Miss Crystal Everett. And let me see who else we got over here. Samurai J, appreciate you for showing up. His divine appointment always, and always coming with the fire. Let's see, Miss Keys, the voice of reason, always gonna give you biblical principles and narrow it down to where you understand that, hey, it's not even about her, you, it's about him. Yeah, let's see, Coach, Gaddy, Miss Charlotte Jordan, thank you for showing up. Mama J. Hey, that's all I can see. But again, I don't see everyone, but if you are out there, remember to like, share, to follow, hit that notification bell so that when we do go live, when there is something new, you'll be notified for anything that comes up. Okay, fellas, I've been rambling long enough. I told you I'm about to throw this ball out there and sit back. Disclaimer, these are our personal reflections. These are our experiences. We may be right in our eyes. Now, when we're speaking biblically, the Bible speaks for itself. But when we're speaking personal experiences, it's not so that you can agree or disagree with us. It's our experiences, and we are people that understand that we are right when we're talking about what we're talking about concerning us. It may not be your experience. So don't take it to heart like, oh, he talking about me. No, most of us, we're going to talk about ourselves, especially on these talking points, because like I said earlier, we have vast experience when it comes to this, unfortunately. But fortunately, these are situations that you can learn from, that you can now identify situations and circumstances to where now when you move forward in relationships, you don't go backwards, revisiting those things. First question. Unlocking hidden power in every conversation. What warning signs did you ignore that now, looking back, were clearly showing your marriage was unraveling?
I'll jump. I would say one would be noticing and I said I'm gonna try to speak from me, not from the other person too much. But one of the signs that I did notice from the other party was the intentional separation, like the purposely not supporting what I was doing, purposely not showing up, purposely not showing interest in conversation. Uh, those were signs that at that point, I realized, hey, I might be alone in this fight. Um, and the more I fought, the more it was, you could see the intentional push. Like, no, I don't want anything from you because I don't want it to be good. I no longer to want it to work out. So I am going to force your hand or force the situation. Uh, and it eventually led up to the idea where I saw, in my opinion, I felt like it was set up so that we can create the perfect environment to say it's time to separate, and I can feel good about it because the environment is no longer healthy.
Yeah, I would. For me, I would initially start off by saying that when what we showed people outside the house was different than what took place inside the house. In other words, we were putting on the facade. We were pretending for everybody else. But once we got home, none of those things existed in the home. Um, it was kind of like to the point to where our perspective of relationship were two totally different things. For me, it was about the family. For her, it was about her. And that was the most frustrating part of it all for me. And then when I started paying closer attention, it was always that. It was that from day one. And for me, I was kind of kicking myself, if you will, because it was like, how didn't I see that? Why didn't I see that? Well, most of us, when we get in relationships, we go in these relationships with these jaded glasses on, right? And we see the thing that we want to see because that's where we kind of like, we believe that this is it. And you make excuses, you make amends, you do all of those other things. Um, and then, sure, because of one thing, then something else will end up happening, right? You'll start intentionally working longer hours and things of that nature. So I think all of those things exist within the space of that. But I have to say it was two different perspectives of relationships.
Yeah, I think for me, I think were several warning signs. One was when, like you were saying, I made excuses not to be home. It's like, okay, I don't want to go home. Why? Because I don't want to argue and I don't want to face this and I don't want to. And I could put the onus on her, saying, how she was this and she was that. But when it was all said and done, I had checked out. I was checked out mentally. I was gone because it was like, okay, I ain't had no more fight in me. Where it was, so it's like mentally, I'm gone. And then I got orders for career. I'm like, "Phew, okay, cool.
Can we come back?
Please do."
Because you telling us what you did as a result of it. But
Mhm.
the question, if I recall correctly, the question was the warning signs that you ignored. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding exactly
Yeah,
what you're saying.
you're definitely understanding. And the warning sign for me was when I didn't, you know, like I didn't want to come home. It was like, because I'm looking at it like, okay, we can get past this. I just need a break. I just need some space. And a little space sitting in the driveway became, hey, I'm just hanging, I'm over Gaddy house. Gaddy wasn't back then. But it became one of those things where I felt that I was missing being, I would say, acknowledged per se. In the house, I didn't feel like my voice really mattered anymore. So those were little warning signs that started to chip away at me and eventually made it to where now those warning signs became actions that I had taken to disassociate myself. In other words, almost remove myself from the family and just become a breadwinner. So, and, and and I know it can't be just one for me, because I think that that's where you when you're in that situation and then you aren't necessarily paying attention, you notice things. And I would notice that we have no intimacy. I mean, if we're talking, it's about the bills. If we're talking, it's about uh, what happened on TV. But there was no intimate conversations. Like there was no concern about what's going on with my life. Hey, how what's the path that we're taking? So, and I saw when there was no track for that, it's like, well, if there's no concern about me or us in the future, the conversation would before would be, okay, what are we doing? What are we going to look like 5 years from now? But now it transitions, and those little things, it's like now I start to hear things differently. When I used to hear we, now I hear I hear you. And so those things were for me eye opening at the end of it as I look back. So I don't know if you guys have anything else on that.
I mean, there's definitely more than one. I, Coach said something right, because he said, a lot of those signs, when you look back on it, was there in the beginning. If not the exact signs, but at least the evidence of what eventually uh, became were there. And I think because a part of it is when people show us what we want to see, they also still showing a remnant of who they actually are. And we see both, but we decide to focus on the parts that we want to see because we want a successful relationship. And so, Ro, there'd be times where I'd be like, I just don't understand this movement. I don't understand these actions. But then when you realize, like, if somebody say, oh, this is the type of person that really only cares about what they want to do, about their feelings and about how everything affects them. Because when Coach said it, that hit, and it's like, well, those signs was always there. Before marriage, I remember, the other party's parent even making a statement during a conversation, like, I know you're going to do what you want to do anyway, and I can't stop that, but this is my advice. And that should have hit to me, like, why would her own parent say that? And so when that manifested in the relationship, it was like, well, that was always there. And I'm acting surprised when this was always evident.
And Coach spoke about those rose-colored glasses. Sometimes we want to see the good. We want to see past what's actually in our face. With his finger on our nose telling us what it is, we'll look past and like, no, it ain't really that. Because we want to see the best in people and we want to make it work. But did you guys act on anything as you were going through any of these signs?
Well, let's back up for a second, because I do understand what you mean when you say we want to see the good in people. Um, but I also think that I talk about this a lot. People, there are three different sides of a person, right? The person that you see in the beginning is the person that they are wanting to show you because they believe that's what the environment is requiring. Um, and when I have a very interesting perspective of who I am, then I am trying to meet that in the midst of this whole interaction that we're having, this interpersonal relationship that we're developing. And so maybe I would do this, and maybe I would do this, and maybe I would buy this, and so forth and so on, because in my mind, that's the thing that I've heard my entire life, that who we're supposed to be. But then at a later point in time, where that gets to the point where that's not enough, where that gets to the point where, okay, I want more, or something of that nature. So I don't think it's that. Well, let me back up. I agree that sure we want to see the good in that person, but I also think in conjunction with wanting to see the good in the person, we're still fighting because we're still trying to understand who we are as men, right? Trying to put off that original ideology that was ingrained in us about what a man is supposed to do, and then adopt a new ideology of what manhood is all about, according to what the scriptures are saying. And that can become problematic. That can create issues for others. Um, but at the end of the day, it still should be something that we can work towards. So when you ask the question, did I do anything about it? Did I act or whatever? Sure. I tried to have conversations about it. I tried to sit down and say, hey, this is what I see. This is what we should be doing. And then it becomes an issue, or it became an issue to where, well, I don't want to do that. Like, why are we changing? Like, this is what we were doing all before. I didn't see a problem with this. So now it just becomes a snowball effect because you're not necessarily tied to that false interpretation of relationship. You're more so trying to do this. And am I saying that you're doing it 100% accurately? No, you're not doing it 100% accurately. You're trying to conform to what this is telling you to do. So that means that, you try to stop doing this and you try to stop doing that. And then it's met with resistance. It's met with arguments, it's met with, cold shoulders, all of these other things. So then, because you're young, you would be like, you just throw up your hand, be like, bump it. You know what I'm saying? Why should I do this if this is the result of it? And so then you just be like, okay, man, it's whatever at this point. So sure, there is going to be a response. I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
No. You good? I thought you were done. My bad. Nah. So I agree. So I'm a make an attempt to put the onus back on me, and I say an attempt because when we talk about these things, I understand sometimes it the initial frustration with the situation can fester, and we can start jumping back on that person, but is part of the problem, and I'm asking myself this question, though I would love to hear your opinion. It's half the problem because I already had an image of what I wanted that person to become, is why I saw the good versus seeing who the person was. Because I saw the good because I saw opportunities of that person becoming what I thought they were supposed to become, to be my spouse. What the image I had set up in my mind that this person would be. And when they didn't meet that criteria, it was like, well, the signs were there because they were never the person that I wanted them to be. And I didn't take them for who they were. I took them for who I thought we can become.
Um, okay, I can say sure that could be part of it, but I think going from a part-time basis to a full-time basis, you don't really get to know the person that you're dealing with on a part-time basis, right? So there is like, I can show you whatever I want to show you if I only see you 2 hours a day, or however long we see each other in a time span of a week. I can be whoever I need to be in that moment. But is that um, the problem is that I haven't reached that level to where I am honest with you up front and let you know who I am. You may not necessarily be honest with me up front. And so you got two people who are presenting an image of themselves to the other person. And then later on, once they make that solid commitment, now you can't keep that up for but so long, because now we're spending more time together. We're in the house together. We're living together. Sure, we get a break and we call that work, and so you get to go to over there and you get to put on the facade over there as well. But then you come back home and then, oh, you get stuff like, let's just use that COVID-19 when it took place. Like, there was a lot of people who were frustrated in their relationships because they spent more time together in the house and they've never spent that much time together at all, which just goes to show that you don't know who you're married to in most cases. So I think a lot of that is that, number one, you make a decision way too soon, right? You did not take the opportunity to get to know the person. You still have yet to be completely honest with yourself, let alone be honest with somebody else. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you won't be honest with somebody else. So all of those things come into bear. I can't say it's just that because I had the image of this person in my head. I don't think it's wrong for me to be able to look at a person and identify potential, to look at a person and see, you know, what is their future look like. I don't think that's the wrong thing. I think it's only wrong when I put a time limit on it. However, now when I start looking at the potential of that person and the time limit, how long am I supposed to sit around in this and wait for you to realize who you're called to be? Just my thoughts.
And I think we're flipping the same coin. And the reason why I say that is because I 100% agree right there. But the potential that I see is the potential that I see in you, not the potential that you've shown me you. And so that's why I think uh have to struggle is sometime. And like you said, could be, because it can always be either way. Uh because I could be wrong by saying that all of us can be guilty or may have been guilty of wanting our spouses to be something that they never showed us that they were. We're not taking people for who they are and who they show us they are, but yet for where. And I think everyone has an expectation of where they want their marriage to be. But when I met Roland, me and Roland became cool, but I never had the expectation that one day he was going to see holidays the same way I did, because he called me back crazy in the church. You know what I mean? Like, but I took him for who he showed me he was. That's my brother. We cool, but this is where we connect at. And then eventually we started seeing certain things the same way. That came with time. But that still surprised me when it happened, because I just had to learn to accept Roland for who Roland was. And I know that this is a friendship, but I don't think we do the same thing when it comes to marriages. We don't look at people and say, this is who they are. I see who they are, and the potential who they can become is based upon who they are. I see who they are, but I also think that they can become this.
I like where both of you went, but I think that I even venture to say that, because I got married young. I was 21 years old. I didn't know who I was. So what I'm presenting to the person, like Coach said, it's a facade. I'm being who I think she wants me to be, and who I've seen people act like, who I've seen marriages be like. I'm trying to be everybody else, but really don't know myself. So when pressure comes and I got to react, now I don't know how to react. So I'm reacting off what I think I should do. So when it came to relational things, it's like, okay, how do I do this? Okay, now I got to control her. And if something happens where I don't agree, I get loud, I get boisterous. I'm the man and I'm this. So my portion in it was just as, negative as, the other person's, because neither one of us necessarily knew what we were getting into, but we tried to, okay, it's one of those fake it till you make it. It's one of those, okay, talk to your mama, you talk to whomever. And so we never get to the point to where we, as Coach was alluding to, where we're honest with ourselves or with the other person. Because if I'm honest now, I'm gonna hurt your feelings, or you gonna hold that against me. So now we're both in that stance where I can't do that. I can't be open, and I can't be naked in the garden with this person, because then they'll see all my flaws. And I'm more afraid of them seeing me for who I am, because I don't even want to expose who I am, because it puts me at a disadvantage. So I love that. Shoot, you guys open that conversation up, because going into our second question, was there a moment you emotionally checked out of your marriage? And if so, what caused it? And why didn't you address it during that time?
Yes. In my Craig from Friday voice. Yes, absolutely. What caused it? The fact that I addressed it and nothing was done about it. Multiple times. Not just 2 or 3 times. I'm talking about double-digit times. So I have this thing, and I'm sorry, a lot of people won't agree, and I'm not saying it because I'm looking for you to agree. I'm just saying it because that's how I see it. My patience, although I do have patience for adults, most of my patience are reserved for kids. Kids are the people that I will spend the time to talk to multiple times about a thing, but then that has an exhaust period as well. But when I have a conversation with an adult, you get about 2, 3 times when it comes to me. Listen, this is now, right? Back then, it was way more than that, because at the end of the day, I still had hope in what I believed our future could be. But I think to this question, like, why didn't you address it? I think initially there's an assumption that we didn't address it. And I don't know too many people who don't address a thing that they see is wrong. So when you look at it, and I know there's all these sayings out there, and there's a saying for this, when a woman's fed up and blah, 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 blah. Baby, let me tell you something. When a man has emotionally checked out, you are wasting your time trying to get him to check back in.
I mean, Coach, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yes, absolutely. There was moments where I emotionally checked out, but I tried to fake my way back into checking in. I tried to work my way in it. Like, if I do the acts as if I was still emotionally here, eventually she'll see it, reciprocate, and emotionally I'll be able to show back up. And this is after things were addressed. And they were addressed quite a few times. I used to get responses, and you could tell when someone has listened to somebody but only heard sound bites and didn't really get understanding of what the saying was. And so when the responses back to me were, "That's the way you feel, and I don't have to address that because that's your feelings, not reality," I'm like, "Oh, you listening to somebody, but you're only listening to the shorts. You're not going and getting full understanding of that saying." because because this is a thing that I am experiencing, don't mean that it is something that you don't need to address because I am the one experiencing. This is a marriage. Uh, and so when that became the mantra going forward, it was like, no, you keep addressing my emotions and you keep addressing my feelings and you keep addressing me and you keep, but understand I'm not here to do nothing. I'm only here to pretty much is what it came down to. Every conversation was, oh, I'm not here to cook every meal. When after you realize they checked out and you've been cooking for 2-3 years, oh, I'm not here to clean up after you. But when you shut out and you went through, and I understood, like, okay, you just had babies, so postpartum is a thing, however long that took. And so I was cooking, cleaning, bringing food to you because you didn't want to move and serving you hand and feet, and the response was, I'm not here to do this and I'm not here to do this. And I'm not, after a while, it's like, I'm addressing things, but all you keep doing is telling me what you're not going to do. And after a while, it's like, well, so you want me to be the entire marriage and you get to just check out and be nothing. That's problematic. And so when I start addressing these things and the response is always, well, that's your feelings, I don't need to address it. Oh, check Raj.
I thought you would bring something else. I can say, especially in my first marriage, I was young. So how did I address it after I checked out? Sally up the street, Kim around the corner. And I was like, okay, whatever. We ain't getting along, but I get along with somebody else. So I found solace in other people. I found solace in doing other things. Anything that kept me away from this person, that's where I found comfort. So my way of dealing with it was to not deal with it, because dealing with it is to come forward and just be straight up honest. That's that nakedness that I'm talking about. And like I say, I was young and I thought, when you're young and you're in the army, you know everything, so, and that's where I was in my walk. And then, I'm trying to, I think Coach was talking about earlier, I'm doing that faking and fronting in front of people. I'm sitting up there making sure that, hey, we look the part out here, but let me see, we look the part out front, but when we go home, once we get in the car, it's like, you know, can you pull that back up, Coach? Oh, I got you. Krista Ever says, yes, I checked completely out. I addressed it, but I was told that everyone is against him because of his past. And Crystal's experience. And when it comes to a person's experience, I don't care what you say, their experience is just that. So when it becomes one of those things that you're afraid of how people gonna look at you, and you're afraid of what people gonna say, and that's the reason you continue to lie, keep the lie up because of how it looks on you. You're not necessarily concerned about the marriage. You're concerned about that portion. Now, those people that are concerned, like, hey, I want the marriage to work. I want this, that, and the other. And you grind at it and you make sure you do your part. I can't speak from that during that time frame because once I felt like I was isolated and wasn't getting what I wanted and disrespected and all these other things, it was like, okay, I see how it is. And I'm just in a relationship biding time. I'm making sure that, hey, okay, y'all got food, y'all got this. Because in the relationship now, it becomes a place of disdain, discourse, and anything else that's this, because it's not functional. It's not one that will and at that point, when I'm looking at it, people may have said, well, does it glorify the Most High? Does it glorify God? And I'm looking at it like, okay, what it matters? She get on my doggone nerves. And it's almost a position of hatred that builds up, that built up in me. I can't speak for anybody else, but that was that part of two.
So which part, because you mentioned a lie.
Mhm.
Which part was the lie? Was it the facade or was it the fact of your withdrawal and going and finding solace someplace else?
I think the part of the lie was that one, that I knew what I was doing. So I'm trying to hold somebody to a standard, but I don't know the doggone standard. So I'm gonna fake through it, and I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to do. So I'm lying to her. I'm lying to myself. I'm putting up that image. Also, now I start to, because I'm doing that because I don't know what's going on and I don't know how to admit it. So I don't know how to be it. So I'm lying to both of us. I'm lying to circle of friends and whomever else, and I go and now I gotta lie. I really didn't even care. I was that disrespectful. I didn't care. I'm wherever. So when it came to me being over here, over there, I may lie about it, may not, but it really didn't matter to me. But I lied to both of us as if I could actually be a part of fixing the problem, knowing a part of knowing how to fix the problem.
So I asked this question because I'm not saying anything that you said was false, but is there not a lie that took place before that? Like, I mean, the facade itself is a lie. So, and I'm asking this because I know, especially in this society, I know that the onus has to be on what he did. I'll be completely transparent. I remember years ago, somebody asked me, you married? I said, no, I'm divorced. Oh, what'd you do? What do you mean what I did? You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not that person that said I didn't do anything. I own up to what I did, but I'm going to own up to the entirety of it, not just my part of it. I'm going to talk about the entirety of it. And I think we don't do a lot of that. I don't think we talk about the entirety of it because then when you have somebody who is going through it, it almost feels like because I am owning what I did, it's almost like you're whipping up on them and making them only look at what they did as though what they did is the only wrong that was done in the relationship itself. Anything that does not meet the ramifications of a relationship is a lie. So if we're existing in this thing and this thing that we say we're going to, take these vows and we repeated these vows, as we like to say, between God and man and all of this great stuff. And then at a later point in time, we go back and then we start doing something totally different than what we acknowledge to one another in public. Well, that is a lie now. We are now lying to one another. And that's the thing that that I think it's okay to talk about the entirety of it, not just the part that I did, but the entirety of it. Because I don't care who you are. If if I had a wife right now and I came home every day and I like literally spoke negatively to her every day, eventually that's going to take its toll on her. It's going to mess with her psyche. She's going to start thinking she's crazy. And we'll talk about that when we start talking about things such as narcissism, which I'm so sick of that word, it's not even funny, right? We'll talk about that real quick, but then we will not address like some of the things that take place in the relationship that is supposed to happen. And even if you were going in the wrong direction, say, hey, can we do this, because I now realize that this that and the third, and then you're showing documentation that supports. So I didn't just make it up. This is something I'm trying to show you. But then we don't talk about that. We just say, oh, well, I did this and I did that and I did this. That's not an accurate perception of reality. And so what we're doing is we're painting a false picture to those people out there who are in it. And what you're telling this person, say, yep, keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is right. And what he is doing is 100% wrong.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that when it becomes, see, I can only take the onus for me and what I did. And now because I think when it came to the relationship, we never talked about it. So I don't necessarily know everything that the other person did. So, or I just know the things that got under my skin, the things that I disliked, the things that where I saw it was leading me to do whatever, versus the whole entirety of who they were and what they were within. Because when I think that in marriage, I always say marriage is a business. I don't care how you look at it, it's a business. And that's what it is. You got to look, how can I grow this business? How can I make this business work? And when I look at it like that, then it's like, okay, I realize that I ain't got to get along with this person every day. But when we talk about me emotionally checking out and doing those things, I wholeheartedly agree that it's a full circle and not just my half of a circle. But when I am identifying where I checked out, that's where I was going. Identifying where I checked out.
I'm gonna pull a coach real quick. Let's back up a second, because you said it's a business and I don't have to like the person to make the business work.
I'm saying like all the time. I'm not saying.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but yeah, not so fast. But when I look at it, right? So it's a business. Every business should have a vision, and the problem comes in is I begin to not like you, or you begin to not like me, because we don't either we don't have the same concept of what the vision for this business is, or we've agreed on what the business vision should be, but one of us are operating outside of that vision, and that becomes problematic. That's when the dislike comes, is because now I feel like you feel like I'm working contrary to the vision. This is where the business or the marriage is supposed to be going, but you're working in a way that's sending it this way. Well, if I'm going this way and you're trying to pull it this way, we're literally going to tear it down at the seams. That's what happens when you push force in two separate directions, trying to hold on to the same item. Eventually, one person is going to either let go, or is going to split right down the middle. And so, I'm not saying that I understand what you're saying, but I think that when we are both, at least for me in my situations, when we were both moving in a way that seemed to benefit the vision, the like for each other came naturally. I didn't have to try to like you, because we were on one accord. We was on one assignment. Somewhere along the line, we forgot we were traveling together, and we became at war with one another because we both wanted the ship to sail in different directions.
I'm glad you stressed that P, but and I understand. See, when I'm speaking of like. I'm not saying that you just have disdain for this person, because nobody, I don't care who you are, you ain't gonna like your kids, your mama, your grandma. You ain't gonna like them all the time. And that's, so I'm not speaking in the sense that you not liking the person overall. I'm saying that sometimes somebody gonna get on your nerve. They're gonna get under your skin, and in that moment, you don't like them. You would rather get away from them, come back, and be like, "Man, you was getting on my nerves earlier," and you can actually communicate. And I think that would be more of a communication thing, what you were speaking to earlier, Gaddy, because I think that when we do move, when we do look at it as a business, we both have to have the same mentality. And I think when you start from that point versus try to gain that point later, it tends to work best. Not when you just get together and y'all happy go lucky, and then you find out like, hold up, I don't really know this person, and that's what happens in a lot of marriages.
Yeah, I get that, and thank you, Lisa, for putting that in there because that's exactly where I was going to go. Um, it's just like corporate America. I will start there. There's only one visionary in a business, right? The visionary is the one responsible for casting a vision, right? You're right. Write the vision, make it plain. You're right. The visionary is the one that's responsible for casting the vision. Well, then there's a mission that exists under that vision. That mission is where we're going and how we're going to get there. But the part that I think we're missing is the core values. The core values that every organization has is the way that we are going to behave, not just with one another, but with the people that we serve as well. If we miss that part and we do not necessarily understand where we get our core values from, then we're going to have problems within the organization. So people who do not adhere to the core values get fired. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm sorry. People who do not adhere to core values get fired. Every organization will tell you that. I hire those who can adhere. I can teach anybody how to do a job. I can teach anybody how to do their job description. That's not the issue. I want you to have certain qualifications, sure. But if you can't adhere to these core values, your tenure here won't be long. I don't see that as any different. So I'm with you. I ain't gonna like you all the time. But eventually, hopefully you'll grow to the point and recognizing that, either the reason why I'm not liking you right now is because you're missing these core values. And because you're missing these core values, that's not governing your behavior. Well, it's only gonna be how many. I'm not gonna come to you over and over and over and over and over again and say, hey, I need you to adhere to these core values. No, these core values are etched in stone. They do not change. And every organization got it. In the Army, we call them the Army values. And you had to recite it so many times that it got ingrained into your subconscious. The exact same thing comes into play when it comes down to our core values, when it comes down to the scriptures. We should have recited them so many times when we were younger to where it became second nature, but we didn't for the most part. Most of us didn't. So now you want to get in a relationship, but you're struggling because you're missing the core value part. Oh yeah, by the way, you want to be the one to cast vision. Well, two visions in a household is called division. Division is a military unit that goes to war.
Okay. Yeah, I like all that. I do. Let's run on to this third question. How did your definition of being a man or being a husband, as shaped by culture and upbringing, contribute to the breakdown of your marriage?
Um, this one is easy for me. It had everything to do with it because I didn't have. Well, I'm gonna stick on the being a husband part because I didn't have too many examples of a husband. Right? I just knew that I wanted to change the image of black manhood as far as it goes with husband and father. And so I pulled what that image should look like from different examples along the way. Some of them were fictional characters, and some of them were the few husbands that I knew, like the ones what I did know about them. Right now, there's some husbands that I saw that were married for a long time that I didn't want to be like because every time I was around those marriages, it was just the woman yelling and he just okay and acting like he really didn't care. I don't do a lot of yelling at me. I don't care what your gender is. That just don't work well with me. So, you know, so when it came to how did that play into or shape or contribute, I'm sorry, to the breakdown of the marriage, is because I didn't respond to certain type of behaviors. Uh, I knew that there was a point to where my spouse at the time wanted me to react, so she communicated to me in a way that we don't communicate with each other, because she thought that that's how she was supposed to talk to get a point across. And my mind went straight into, oh, she ain't talking to me. and I kept it moving, because I don't respond to that kind of behavior, especially not from, and I don't mean to sound crazy, but y'all know my mantra when it comes to arguing with men, right? And so I don't like arguing, and I'm not going to look at a female and say fight me or shut up. So it's easy for me to go, okay, because if you start hostile, I'm not going to respond, because my response to hostility is yeah, y'all know. So what do I do? So my image of being a husband was, and that's in that situation, I had no image. I I told you, the one person that I did know a little well, I used to hear them get fussed at all the time, and they just went along. They just went, okay, whatever. And I'm just not the okay, whatever kind of person. You're not just finna yell at me. You're not finna just holler. You can yell at this wall while I go upstairs and play the game or turn on the TV. But that level at that time in my life, to be able to handle the conflict like that, I had no idea. And I wouldn't even stay around to listen to it. Getting a little bit older, I stay around, listen to it, and then after the hollering, I might go, can you let me know now what your point is you want to get across? Because I didn't hear nothing you said with all that hollering. So now, can you make it plain to me? After she got it out, but I'm being honest, right? And I know some people say that might not sound like the right way to handle it, but I'm not listening to you. I'm letting you get it out. But while you yelling, I'm not listening. I'm being honest. So now that you got it out, can you explain to me what the point is you want to get across?
Partially. Again, I'm gonna talk about the whole picture. I'm not just gonna keep it just in, here. Sure, it was a partial. It influenced the decline of the relationship partially. However, this is what I would say. It's not just my interpretation of me being a man or me being a husband. It's also her interpretation of me being a man and me being a husband. And the issue with her interpretation of me being a man or me being a husband is that it's jaded by the only example that she's ever had, her father. So now, when you look at me as a man, you're a lot of times comparing it to your father. And that becomes problematic in a lot of cases. Like, sure, your dad is your daddy. I'm not taking nothing away from that. But at the end of the day, I'm not your daddy. I'm not trying to be your daddy. Right. So I think when I look at, because we talk about it all the time, we look at taking off false identities that were given to us and then putting on a brand new identity that is more right for us. It's not just me taking it off and putting on this new one, it's also her recognizing that as well. So she's going to have to recognize the fact that there's a transition that's happening within me, a transformation, if you will, that's happening within me. But if your notion of fatherhood or husband looks more like your dad, and now you're holding me hostage to your interpretation of what that is supposed to be because you're comparing me to your dad, my next response is go tell your dad and his wife to move over so you can climb in bed right between the two of them. Because a lot of times, and again, like I said, we got to talk about it holistically. If we don't talk about it holistically, we're missing a big piece. There's a lot of men right now that are, I don't want to use the word cowering, but diminishing themselves because they're still trying to hold a standard of their father-in-law. That's just wrong. That's an error. So sure, my identity played a part in the decline, but it wasn't a major part.
I would say that for me, when I got married, I was heavy in the church, and so I had a lot of people telling me, what men do, how men, what she's supposed to do for me. And so it was one of those do as I say. Yeah, daddy get the big piece of chicken. Bring the check home. Men got to suck it up. Men got to take all the blame. So it was one of those things where you off the rip, I was feeling the brunt, the pressures and everything. It was like becoming negative for me because it's like, hold up, I'm not, I gotta accept the blame for everybody. I gotta no matter what. So it was one of those things where I'm looking at it as a negative, like hold up, being a man is yeah, I'm the masculine person in a relationship, but I'm learning from other people that how we talk in the locker rooms and things of that nature. Those are the people that I'm learning from. Those are the people that I'm taking what they give, and I'm taking that into my marriage. I'm taking that into my home. So I'm trying to run my house like other people may run theirs, or they may just be, talking loud around the fellas, but I'm taking that home. So it was not a good space because one, I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to become, but what they're telling me is not what I should become. Because if they were trying to teach me what I should become, they'd go where coach was going first. Because when you go back to the bylaws and everything, the bylaws for us is the scripture. The bylaws for us is what he said, how he said to interact with one another, not how uh Johnny said, or I don't care if it's your pastor, your bishop, your apostle, whatever you want to call them, they don't live here. And if he's going to help instruct, instruction has to come from word and not him. And that's where I was being maneuvered left and right because it was almost a shut up and take it mentality that was trying to be instilled in me. And I ain't never been able to shut up no matter what's been going on. So that type of environment wasn't conducive to us actually making it, us actually trying to make it, because it was one of control. One, somebody controlled me and how I reacted, and other person I controlled, and we were all controlled by the same system. So it wasn't a good upbringing mentality when it came to the breakdown of the marriage, because no one would, we didn't learn communication at that stint of the marriage. You,
You know, I especially when you brought up the church, I kind of struggled there as well, because you everybody on here knows when the brothers got together at in the church, we got together, we laughed, we joked, whatever we did, and we would say things jokingly. We'd be like, "Man, you run your house. You better run your house." When she come in and talk about something, it's time to go, knowing that we fellowshipping. You're like, who what size shoes you wear? Who the man in your house? We say funny things like that, but the actual teaching was happy wife, happy, like we all know, we talk about it all the time here. That was the actual teaching. And so I always had a struggle with that because the Bible telling me to lead, but you telling me make sure she happy. And sometimes her being happy means I ain't leading nothing. She leading. Because we doing what she say. What she say go. Well, you better make sure she happy because if Coach brought up earlier, the woman scorn and all that, and we've heard that all the time. And so we when you start talking, and this is what I mean. Like I didn't have a physical image of her. I saw husbands in church growing up, but I didn't see them as husbands. I didn't see how did you lead your home? How did you be or did you just step in when someone disrespected your wife? Was that the only time you were the husband? Because that's the easy part. I can tell you to watch your mouth. That's easy to me. But what else is there? And so you have to struggle when you try to bring those two together. Because how do I bring together, you know, being the head of my wife, like Christ is the head of the church, and happy wife, happy life. Like, where do we make this meet in the middle? I couldn't.
And that's my point. What you literally just described is learned behavior. And a lot of times and for those, for those people who are blessed to be raised in a house with both parents, that's a great starting point, right? If that young man has a father in the house, now he's learning fatherhood and manhood from his father. Same thing for that young girl. But when we transition and become young adults and we get married, you have to conclude, you have to come to some degree of understanding that the way that she is acting, the way that he is acting in said relationship is a behavior that they learn. So now, if we don't have honest conversation about that behavior to the point to where we're seeking to change behavior within ourselves for the sake of relationship, because the relationship should be the most important thing. Well, if I was never taught that, then the most important thing to me is how I feel. There's the problem.
And I think, Gatti, you had mentioned that you've seen a lot of husbands. I think you may have seen a lot of married people. We've seen a lot of married people, and those married people later on, when you find out, like, oh, he ain't happy at his house either, and the stuff that he telling me to do, he ain't even doing. He just got more time because she over there cackling over here. So I think get first of all, I wish, and my grandma used to say, "Wish in one hand, do something in the other." But I wish I would have learned early on about being honest with self. Because when you're honest with self, you can be honest with everybody else. And during those phases where I tried to buffalo my way because that's what I thought a man should do, I would have understood that that's not a technique necessarily that anybody would be giving way to. That you just gonna buffalo and just tell them what to do because I thought, hey, it's what I say. I was like Ralph Cramden, that's before your time, way before your time, where he'd say, to the moon, Alice. He was ready to, knock her out and everything. But I think that when
I
we look,
watched The Honeymooners. Don't do that.
okay, you good. So
Before my time.
before your time, we got birthdays this year. But yeah, let's go on over to that number 4. Were the things your wife asked for repeatedly that you didn't respond to until it was too late? That last part, yeah.
I think the answer to this question is going to always be yes. So I just got to say it that way. Um, because I think that's kind of like the nature of human interaction. We're going to ask for things back and forth to where the other person don't respond to. Um, but then also we also need to understand whether or not the thing that is being asked for is that thing conducive to a healthy relationship? Is it conducive to our forward progression, things of that nature? So when we ask this question, were there things that was asked for repeatedly that I didn't respond to? The answer is yes. Until it was too late. I can't even define too late because I was the one who filed for the divorce. So if we're saying the divorce itself is too late, or someplace back here is too late before the divorce happened, I don't know. I can't ascertain that within the scope of time and the transition of what actually happened. Why did I minimize it? Because it was not for the whole. That's why it was just for her. And at the end of the day, I won't even call it minimizing. It was rejecting. I'm not going to do something that is solely for your interests, but yet it does not benefit the entirety of the family as a unit. So when we ask certain things, and again, I'm just being transparent when we look at it, when we ask certain things, and it's just purely for me, and me. Well, if I cannot see how it benefits us, and we're in a space to where we're still growing, right? Not just in age, but also in maturity. And in the space of growing in maturity, finances are involved with that. So we're growing in financial maturity as well. I don't see that as being part of our budget at this particular point in time, even though that's what you and you alone want. So the answer is no. Well, I mean, that's not minimizing, that's rejecting all the way together. And so why did I do it? Because it didn't benefit the unit. That's why.
I think you explained where my struggle is with this question is because I don't think it's that I didn't respond. I think it's that I didn't give in more so because I responded because I believe in having that conversation. And so I think sometimes you could be married to a person who's not interested in doing improper planning, right? Uh and so and I'm trying to phrase things to where I'm not saying she did, because we get it. But when you're dealing with someone who's like, no, I want what I want now, and I would not pay any bill in my life until I get what I want. And I don't care how it destroys our livelihood as long as I got what I want. Um, it's hard to respond because I'm not going to respond the way you want me to. I'm not finna not pay my mortgage so that you can get just whatever you want. I'm not finna stop paying the light bill or the water bill, whatever the case may be. Like, there's no reason why I should be 3 months behind on every bill just so you could spend extra money. Well, maybe we need to learn how to save better so that we can get the things we want in time, if that's what we're going to do with our extra money. Right. Um, and so I'm not going to say that I didn't respond. Now, I do get what you're saying, Coach. There may be things that maybe I'm not recalling, because I'm pretty sure that exists, that there's things that I'm not recalling that I probably didn't respond to just because I didn't want to do it, right? And I'm be honest with you, and we as men, we get there sometimes. I just didn't want to do it, and so we just not. But it's sad to say it like that, but that's something I could be honest about. Like, I'm not finna do that, or I'm not finna do that right now, because sometimes now, our ladies in the chat, I love y'all, right? But sometimes I feel like y'all like to ask. You know how I operate. You know what my schedule look like. You know what I got going on. And sometimes you will come and ask me to do something to interrupt what you already know I have set that I'm going to do at this time, and then you're mad at me because I didn't move on what you asked me. All right. You want, oh, I wanted you to cook the something that we all like, right? But George is playing, right? And I did that on purpose, right? Like, why would you ask me right now? You knew getting well I wasn't getting up to go cook nothing until this game was over. You should have asked me a few hours ago before the game came on, or whatever. Like, and I think sometimes, and it's just me, I think sometimes women do it to see, like, you're loyal to them, they're number one, and so I want to see if you're going to break your routine to give me what I want. But if we already had this established that this is the thing, don't ask me to break it, because I'm not going to ask you in return. Now, if you say that this is not conducive to the vision and to the mission, then maybe I need to reevaluate the thing. Okay, that's different than just coming in the middle of it, saying, hey, the game comes on at 3:00. Hey, at 3:00, can you take the kids to? No, sure can't. I can't. No. All right. But I digress. Yeah, that's why I was just like, yep, let me just land right there.
I agree with everything y'all just said. Happened over here too, but I think that for me, when I looked at this question, I thought about me and Dwayne. You was with me. We were young in the military, and we were fast tracking. We were moving, and so for me, I might get, hey, let's go on vacation. Let's go here. Let's go there. And I'm like, I don't, for one, I won't spend the money. But instead of saying that, instead of just owning that, I would say, no, we ramping up to go wherever. or if I'm trying to fast track, hey, I gotta do this schooling. That's what I did. No, that's what I did. And so I would make those excuses to where I didn't have to do none of that. I didn't have to spend that money. I'm trying to do other things anyway, and you trying to make me go spend money and spend time with your crazy uncle and them, and I don't really want to go. So I got to go to SLC. I got to go to Beaton. I got to go to Field Sand Course, or my troops. I can't let them down. So I put the military first a lot when I was younger because I was trying to move ahead, and if I'm not there, somebody else might move in front of me or wherever. It was one of those things where I always looked at, if I'm not there, it ain't gonna happen until I had a senior leader sit me down and say, dude, if it ain't done by 5 o'clock, it'll be there tomorrow. Like, oh, go to your kids' recital, go to your children's appointments, and do these things to strengthen the family bond. But early on, I was like, man, I ain't trying to be around there. I'm gonna be around you. You're gonna do enough complaining when I get home, so I just get that there. And that's where I was on this thing, along with what you guys said as well. But I had some of that where it was like, man, please, where we going? And then I'll be sitting at work doing nothing.
Yes, I didn't have that. I didn't have that. Like, if I had to go to work, I had to go to work. I'm not going to listen. I didn't want to be there any longer than I had to be there. But if I had to be there, I had to be there. But I also believe in conjunction with that, regardless of whether, and this is again young, right? When you're young, regardless of, kind of going back to what Gaddy said, regardless of whether or not you know that that person has to work, that person is the only person in a unit of 1,100 people with their MOS and their pay grade. So if they need that particular person, they need that particular person, especially if you're working at S3 shop. So it's not like you can take off and go eat lunch like little Timmy's dad did. I ain't little Timmy dad. Stop telling me what you seen little Timmy dad did. You know where I'm at. You call me, you hear soldiers in the background, you hear the sergeant major yelling like something wrong with him. You hear all this stuff. So it's like you have that. And then to your point, vacation, sure, I used to get that as well. Right. But again, when I look at the budget, it's not in the budget. We're not going to go. And the answer is no. I'm not going to allow to work on work because at the end of the day, I didn't want to be there longer than I had to be. But if we don't have it in the budget and I can see that it would be detrimental, we're just not going to do it. And the answer is no.
Feel you.
Hey, there you see it. I'm just saying.
Hey, but I know, like now, I can understand where I would make different decisions. Where, knowing what I know now and growing and maturing, yeah, decisions that I made then, nah, I was young, dumb, and the rest. But I was thinking about, I was selfish a lot of times, and for me, I was selfish because I was thinking about my advancement. I wasn't thinking about, she want to take some classes and all these other things. So it was, so when you think of the overall marriage, I got to own my part. Yeah, she was learning and she was young and dumb as well. And so you got two people who are in that mental scope that's trying to piece together some semblance of a marriage, and they still got their upbringing, they still got their background, they still got their personalities that people are trying to shovel past, I guess. And so it was one of those things that was set for destruction and dysfunction from the get-go. Where we at? Let's roll over to number 5. Did your spiritual walk or lack thereof play a role in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, you know for me, yes. hey, Ro no, like, hey, Ro was with me on part of this journey.
I don't say with you because it seemed like we was
Yeah,
conspiring
yeah.
or something.
You know what I mean. You know, nah, man, because there was moments where I was just flabbergasted at certain things, and I would be like, "Am I tripping? Yeah, I use that word, and that's my $5 word for the month, not the day, the month. Um, but so I don't think it's a surprise to anybody on here like that I no longer, and I don't think anybody on here traditionally attends church, right? There was a shift theologically. To me, it didn't seem as dramatic, but to anyone else, I understand the dramatic when your life is tied to the emotional fulfillment of showing up to church more than it is to understanding what the text says. Right now, here's why it kind of bothered me. It bothered me, and if I'm reeling off, I know y'all know how to let me know, but because when and this is just who I was. Anybody that I talked to in that beginning stages, it was important to me that I knew that we can talk about Bible and not just talk about, oh, I love you, I like you, kisses, smooches on the phone all night. Like, but can we talk about what's important to me? And I just want to talk. Can we spend time actually just talking about Bible? So we did that, and all that time, I made it very clear how I saw certain things. Right, the church may not necessarily agree with how I see these things, but these are things that I believe that the Father was showing me, and I made sure. And like, is that a problem to you? And so when those things came to full circle, and we made the decision that we made, for me, it's like you're not even leaving me because I'm saying this about who we are. You're or not leaving, but mentally leaving the marriage because I'm saying this is who I believe we are, but you're leaving because I said this is what I believe the scripture's telling us to do. But you always knew that, which is why the duration of our marriage, we never celebrated a Christmas, or we never did certain events at the church. We didn't allow our kids to be in certain things because there was a way that we believed, and we stood on that. But it's cool as long as you can keep certain aspects of what you had. So as long as you can keep this part, and you can keep this part, and you can keep this part, it was okay. It was okay. But when that thing comes to full circle and the full maturity of an understanding that you're gaining, because I don't care who you are, if you got an understanding, or quote unquote, as people like to say, a revelation in recent years, that thing is going to come to a full maturity, and it's not going to look like what it looks like when you first realize that thing. That's just how it is. Because right now you're still getting understanding of what that is. But when it comes to full maturity, there's some moves that's going to happen in your walk and in your life as a result. And so for me, when that happened, it was like, yeah, absolutely not. Now I need to actually walk against you. And so, and even that, it was something I addressed. And I'd address, I said, I didn't ask you to say everything I say, and I didn't ask you to believe everything I believe overnight. What I asked you to do was walk with me. Let's read together. Let's study together. Let's take this journey together. Because are we together or not? Or is it only we're together when it's leading where you want it to go? Right? We couldn't even pray together no more because it was like, no, God told me I need to have my independent walk, independent of you. Did he? Because his word says contrary. Or the spirit told me. And in the words of Coach, yeah, a spirit did tell you. I don't know what spirit told you, but it ain't gonna contradict the word. So, but I digress right there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that response. I don't think a person's spiritual walk can be held responsible for the demise of a relationship. I'm just not that bold to tie those two together. Um, I think going back to what I said in the beginning, two different perspectives of it. That's totally different. Your perspective of me going to church, attending the church, and again, we ain't even we ain't vibing. We ain't even on good terms, but we want to go to church. You see what I'm saying? Not that church is going to put us back on good terms, by the way, right? Not that going there and putting on more of a facade is going to put us back in good graces with the Most High. No, that's just not going to happen. So when I look at this question, did my spiritual walk or lack thereof, right? I mean, I think everybody has a version of lack thereof, and then everybody has a version of their spiritual walk, regardless of what that looks like. There has to be a coming together, a union of what that looks like. Yet I love the fact that you said just now about, God told her, and I'm just using this as an example because I heard something similar to that. God told her that she needs to have a walk independent of me. Well, then you should. That's my response. I'm sorry. Then you should listen to that. Because one thing I ain't gonna ever do, I ain't gonna ever tell you what God told you and what God didn't tell you. But I know in my mind, and I'm gonna keep it to myself, you should listen exactly to whatever that spirit is telling you to do. Just being honest. So I can't say that a person's spiritual walk plays a role in the breakdown of their marriage. Because at the end of the day, you know, the marriage is sacred. The spirit is not going to work against the marriage. The problem might have been that the person that you tied yourself to, or even you, may not necessarily be pursuing him. So now when he starts teaching one or the other person about his ways, it causes a little tribulation within the relationship. But if the relationship was important from day one, it shouldn't cause a breakup, a division within the relationship. If you understand what a marriage is, it should not pull you apart because he decides to go this way or whatever the case may be. It shouldn't be she decided to go this way. I'm just going to say that. I'm sorry. Most people don't want to hear that, but I'm sorry. I'm just going to be transparent. Go listen to somebody else if you want them to lie to you. But if you want to hear what you want to hear the truth, I'm just saying. If you believe that that he told you that he told the wife to go do something different, I question that.
I don't question it. I'm gonna call it a lie. But that's just me. And I'm bold enough to say it. I don't care. Because when you speak when it comes to scripture, when you're saying that he's saying something that he didn't say, that he didn't orchestrate, that he didn't order, it is what it is. Like, call a dog a dog. But when it comes to the spiritual walk or lack thereof playing a role or breakdown, I think what you explained was my version of it playing a role. Because if like when we got together, it wasn't about it ain't had nothing spiritual except that a preacher was hired to do the officiating, unless you went to the justice of the peace. That's the only spiritual thing, because we's married now, so we can be adults. So now we can do all these things that they kept telling us not to do. So for me, the scripture says, can two walk together except they be agreed? And when you and the other you aren't agreeing on what he has said, you're walking in opposite directions in the first place. So the relationship is it's just waiting to happen. It's just severing as you continue to walk apart, because you're not seeking him, you're not following him, one or both. And sometimes if I can't, like these brothers here, if I can't check you with word, not with what I feel, not with what I think, with word, then we aren't necessarily brothers. But if I can come to you like, hey, bro, the word says this, might feel a certain, or when I'm coming to me, I might feel a certain way, might get puffed up, but at the end of the day, I gotta bow to that and that alone. So when we look at the separation of said marriage and how things exist, I think sometimes we don't take into account that this was never a spiritual union to begin with. It was just something that our flesh desired, and we acted on it, and we loved them so much that we say, hey, let's get married, let's get our families together, and let's spend a bunch of money or whatever, and I'm gonna stand down here, you gonna come down the aisle, we gonna hear some Brian McKnight or Johnny Gill or something, and then at the end of the day, everybody gonna rise and they gonna say, I do at the end. Now, the in between, the vows and all of that, were we thinking about that? where we're thinking that, hey, these vows are to her, these vows are to him. So those warning signs, I think they start in the beginning. We just tend to ignore them a lot of times. So for me, that spiritual breakdown was a lack of knowing, a lack of seeking, and a lack of relationship. So the lack of relation, not with one another, but with him. Just giving it time. Number 6. In what ways did silence, avoidance, or passivity because your way of dealing with conflict, and what damage did that cause?
Yeah, I think we both wait for just
Well, I ain't seen none of this. I did not keep silence. I didn't avoid anything, and I wasn't passive about nothing. That was the problem. The problem wasn't silence, avoidance, or passivity for me. The issue is that I wasn't being silent. The issue was I wasn't avoiding concerns. I was talking about them head on. I wasn't being passive about anything. If people actually know me, they know that to be a true thing. So it's like that was more of the problem. Now, you know, sure. Was there silence? Sure. Was there avoidance or passivity? Sure, it was. But it wasn't by me. Did it do damage? Sure, it did, because I wanted to talk about problems. I wanted us to work out concerns and issues or whatever. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said previously. I'm not saying I did everything right. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying, as it pertains to this particular question, I did not have any of these. Were there certain things I just did not want to deal with? Sure. I think that's every man, simply because, and I've had this philosophy for years. Generally, men don't, and I use the term complain, but it's not really a complain. Men don't really address a thing unless it really does have to do with respect. And so at the end of the day, there are certain things that we see, we just don't say anything about it because I don't even want to deal with that right now. I don't even want to get in that type of conversation. So does that exist? Yes. Did that exist for me? Absolutely. But was I silent? Did I avoid stuff, or was I passive about things? No, because at the end of the day, when it came down to dealing with conflict, I always met it head on. Did I always do it right? Nope, I did not. But I did attempt to meet it head on. And because I didn't do it right, I think that may have caused some damage, and that may be a reason for some of the silence. That may be a reason for some of the passivity in the future. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you're young, you're still figuring out how to deal with conflict, how to get to the point of resolving conflict. And again, talking about a thing to me was always the right thing to do.
For me, yeah, at a young age, my pettiness did go this direction, not because. So let me rephrase. This was the evidence that the damage was done, right? When I'm still trying to communicate, but I also don't have the trust and confidence in you to handle my raw uh feelings or thoughts on a thing because it's mismanaged. And so for me, that's the disrespect that Coach just talked about. If I'm speaking about a thing and you act, or the follow-up is almost as if I said nothing, to me, you just showed me a complete disregard for everything that comes out of my mouth, especially when it's constant, not just one time, because we all say things that somebody we're talking to really don't want to hear, right? At some point in time in life. But when the constant reaction to what I'm saying, or to what I'm addressing, or to what I'm trying to move us to do as a family is just a total disregard, then because I'm not, and that's where it gets hard, because I'm like Coach in a way, like I don't have the ability to keep silent about things. And so when I realize you're not going to hear me directly, I find I'm going to now speak indirectly, because maybe you'll hear me, if I'm petty, and not saying that that's correct, that's not the right thing, but that's where I reverted to. I ended up becoming the passive in the way I said things. I would just make a statement instead of addressing that I feel that this statement applies to you, right? Because you obviously don't want to hear me. Maybe you hear me if I just make a statement and open a conversation. Get your thoughts. And then you respond, well, I know that that's how you feel, and I hate when you speak to me indirectly. Well, then respond to me, or let's have a conversation when I address you directly. Don't just dismiss me because you're a woman and what I said is beneath you. And I'm not, and yes, I do. When women do that, that's how I feel, because I hear a lot of women speak that way. Uh, I heard a lot of women speak that way growing up. I used to always hear women speak that way, as if men are just beneath them inherently because they're men, right? And so when you do things that look that way to me that's how I see it. You just have inherent disregard for men. And so when I realized we couldn't have a normal conversation, I began to make those statements like, yeah, I think a lot of women have a disregard for men just because they're men. They don't have no real reason. They just believe that men are second class to them, even though the scripture says this. Are you talking about me? Does it feel like I'm talking about you? Like, nah, but that, and I'm not saying that, yeah, that narrative still, it does. I don't keep my circle around people that speak like that no more. But so, and I'm not saying that it was right to be passive in addressing things, but being passive was the evidence that there was already a breakdown in our communication for me.
I think for me, I'm gonna be short and sweet because I didn't know how to deal with, as you guys keep alluding to, conflict resolution. I didn't know how to deal with, my way of dealing is I got to put hands on you to make you do what I want. So I kept getting in trouble. And then I kept going seeing these people and all these other things. So I'm like, dog, I keep getting in trouble every time I say something. So me saying no to a thing or not saying no to a thing that I knew was some mess, just so I wouldn't hear her mouth, just so I wouldn't argue, just so we would just, okay, let's go along and get along. Yeah. So I said no to a lot of things that I shouldn't have said no to. I mean, yes to a lot of things that I should have said no to. And I just let stuff slide to as an act of avoidance. So I was passive in that nature. One, because my lack of maturity and knowing how to deal with emotions and how to maneuver through that thing, it wouldn't allow me to act how I knew how to react because I kept getting in trouble. So when they keep taking money out your pocket, keep making you do extra duty, and then later on in the military say, hey, if you do these things, we kicking you out. So now it's like, okay, my hands tied. And when people know your hands tied, they can almost act however they want. And that also helps usher you out of said relationship because now I know you're just doing these things and you're the same thing feeding you, you're putting it in jeopardy. So I definitely didn't like that part of it. But at the end of the day, it was one of those things, it was a learning lesson. I had to learn how to deal with me first. And as I dealt with me first, now that level of maturity lets it be so I can just sit back and listen to you. It doesn't bother me because I always say that nobody can make you do anything unless you let them. Somebody made you mad or make me sick. You got to allow that. And so when you have a level of maturity that where you control how you react, you control how you respond, then and only then are you in a place where others can't just manipulate you by what they do. It's been a great conversation, and I love how my brothers came with it from their perspectives, from how they see it. And it's not one where coach's perspective ain't mine and mine ain't Gaddy's and so forth and so on, because we've all been through it and we've all handled it different ways. And I'm glad that these gentlemen came and spoke it from theirs. So at this time, we're going to go right into our final thoughts.
Man, I almost didn't even realize the time had gone past so fast. This was a good conversation with my brothers. And to the chat, thank y'all. Y'all on fire. But the name of this podcast is The Hearts of Men. The episode is the silent divorce warning, signs that you've ignored. And when I listen back in my head to the conversation we had, I don't want anyone who don't know this panel to think that this was a female bashing session. This is from the perspective of men, right? And if you go to a female's channel where they've all been through these scenarios, I think it would be similar, but in reverse, right? But with that said, I think so many times we get our relationships end because one party is not heard or one party is not respected because they're seen as lesser. There are some men who hold women at a lower regard because they feel women should just bow and submit and not have an opinion. And there are some women who think that men should just pay the bills and shut up and let the woman do what she needs to do. But it's a union. United. It's a united front. It's a common goal, common mission, right, between man, woman, and the Most High. And if we don't have that, and we don't understand that we both exist in these spaces, then we will always lose sight of the relationship. If both parties are not respected, there will be an opportunity to lose sight of the relationship itself. And then we will look back and blame each other and bash each other and throw each other's name in the dirt because we wanted it our way. Well, let's look at what's first off the mandated way, and then look at what the mission is for our union, and what the plan and the vision is going forward, so that this way we can be together and not against each other. That's all I have.
Absolutely a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I believe wholeheartedly it takes two people to join in a union, just like it takes two people to disjoin that union. And I love what Brother Gaddy just said, because I believe that there has to be both versions of the conversation that comes to the table for others to learn from. If one version sounds like, well, I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that, or she did this and she did that and she did this and she did that, there is no learning that happens in the midst of that. So you have to be honest. You have to be transparent. To the point of this particular show, the silent divorce warning signs you're ignoring. I think number one, if you're involved with somebody and they have different life goals or values, it's going to be a fundamental problem. That's just, I can't say it any more clear than that. It's going to be a fundamental problem because you do not have a common ground. So conflict doesn't get resolved, futures don't get planned, household responsibilities never come to the same understanding that both parties should have. But then there's these four things that are known as the four horsemen, and those things literally set the conditions to where you can predict if a person is going to get divorced. That is criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. Those four things, if it exists in a relationship, it is the beginning of the end. And last but not least, I mean, my own personal favorite, I think, I don't care what man you talk to, and it's not exclusively to men, but this is the thing that I can tell you for sure that most men will agree on: lack of respect. Respect is I don't know, it's just a foundational thing for a man. It is something that men hold firm to, gravitate. That's our love. That's what love looks like to us. It is respect. So if we don't get that, if we don't understand these things, then you can find yourself in a situation to where like you're foregoing these things and trying to live day by day, and you're trying to keep that airplane in the air with duct tape and just 550 cord, because at the end of the day, it is sinking fast.
I love these brothers' perspective. Comes from their mind, and this was truly from the hearts of men. Now, hopefully, the hearts of women will come and speak from their perspective as well, because we all know that it's well-rounded. It's not just what we say or what they say. It's what we all say combined. When it comes to the silent divorce warning signs, I think that a lot of us will look at things like, I love Coach brought up respect. A lot of people will look at the lack of intimacy, or she's being quiet, or, when a woman's fed up, as somebody alluded to earlier. I think we'll look at those things, but those things speak loud to me. When you're not doing what you did in the beginning, speaks loud to me. It's not just about those things, because we can identify those things like, oh, she quiet, she acting funny, she don't even want to be bothered. That whole saying, when she stops complaining, then she's done. That speaks loud. That's not a silent divorce warning sign. That's just something that comes along the way. But what was the sign before that? So I think that what we should communicate in the beginning of our relationships is where we're headed. Where are we going? Because when you can do that, you can say, okay, what or who is leading us? And when you identify that, now you know you're on the same page. And divorce can be between the union of man and woman, but it can also be between people that you know in your everyday walk, your friends, your family, because you separate yourself. Because those that aren't going where you're trying to go, you may have to divorce yourself from them. And you don't have to look for the intimacy of a man and a woman. You have to look for the intimacy of the time that they spend with the Most High or not. So I thank you. We appreciate you for showing up. And I'm loving it. So, yeah, you can bring us back. That's the end of the show. We went a little over time, but I think it was well worth it, because these gentlemen, they made sure to give you something that you can go back and check on and write that stuff down. Because I was over here writing like these brothers, they giving me nuggets, because I'm appreciative of them exposing their selves for this hour and a half or whatever. So thank you. See you on Sunday. Kept going in the no. Hearts of Women. It's that time already. Tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time over here in Texas. Be there at 9:30 so we can see what our dear sisters have for us to chew on, and we'll be there to support. We got that tomorrow. Then on Sunday we will be over. I think, Coach, you do a Bible study early in the morning, so we'll be over there. And then after that, we are on TikTok at 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. We will be on the Voice of Reasons podcast on her platform. So make sure you go over there, and we will join in and have a love fest over there as well. So until then, yeah, love fest, man. Hey, I'm all about love. I ain't brother love, because brother love locked up. But I had to be silly when I could. But until next time, hopefully see you guys in the morning. And then on Sunday, until next week, we'll see you right here on the Hearts of Men podcast. Thank you.